Yeah, so the MOOC came from an idea that Michael and I had to transform his hyperlinked library course that he's been teaching in some version of for many years now, but before when he was at Dominican University and now when he's been at San Jose State University. And I felt that the content material, we both felt that the content material was such that it would really, it would scale well to the massive community, whatever we felt the massive community would be, and we felt that it's been something that Michael has talked about on the conference circuit a lot, and in his research, and it's gotten some really great feedback from professionals, and we felt this would be something that we could do to go outside of those traditional avenues for disseminating it, for disseminating the model and disseminating the research behind it, and thought that it would be a great way to make good use of a MOOC, to make it specifically for professional development instead of what MOOCs have usually been for, which has been kind of as a 4-credit course replacement, or to augment some 4-credit courses at massive scale. Of course, there are some courses that are specialty MOOCs that have specialty content. So we felt that it kind of separated our MOOC from that of the mainstream of what's been going on with MOOCs by specifically focusing in on professional development with an interesting content area. So that's how it pretty much started. I think I threw the idea over to him in maybe December sometime, and then we were at the Elise conference in Seattle in January, and we kind of hashed out all the details there. So yeah, it's been exciting. That's a really good question, and it kind of goes back many years for our decision why we did this. Michael and I have been working together in some form since I was a student at Dominican. That's how we met before I was a student, but as I was a student at Dominican working on my master's in library and information science there. So that would have been 2007 to 2009 was when we started to work. And at the time I was kind of his TA in some courses, and in starting out, I think my first semester there, we started to look at his course sites that he had been kind of building with WordPress, and then I had been using WordPress in my own teaching when I was a secondary ed teacher, English Lit, and I said, well, there are some other things that we can do with this. Let's see how much we can build out and make it more into a community space. And so we've been working on iterative pieces of this course site for many years, and I continue to work with him occasionally in helping him with his course sites. He's pretty proficient at managing them now, but when he needs major overhauls, I work with him to help do that. And then I have, because of my experience with him, because of my experience before in my own teaching, and also because of my experience at Elmhurst College, where I had my first professional position where I was kind of an IT manager, I did a lot of WordPress work there as well and transformed our library website into WordPress. So I became a little bit of an expert in WordPress, and so yeah, so I think we just naturally went there because of my experience and because of our work together. Yes and no. It depends on how you define a course site, really. Because of course, you know that learning management systems tend to dominate course design in higher education, for better or for worse. And I think there are elements that we can pick out of what a good course site is, and elements that need to be required. But Michael and I, as we've discussed on the MOOC, where it talks about our instructional design focus, we felt that WordPress, especially using the multi-site version of it, allowed us to create an environment that was community-centered, that allowed students to create their own unique spaces that they could customize to their own identities and reflect their growth as they went through the course. And we've always believed this of WordPress, that it was really a really good reflection of kind of our teaching philosophies, whereas a learning management system traditionally isn't. A learning management system as we're dealing with at my own institution, tends to force students into discussion forums, and that's the place where they they learn, where they engage with each other. And we think that, yeah, you can do a really good discussion forum, but blogs tend to be more centered on reflection, more centered on networking ideas with hyperlinks and with comments and with the sharing functionality. And so we think that that's just been a better approach for us overall. When Michael and I have used these environments in the past, at maximum it's been, I don't know, maybe 30 students, 35 students per installation. And so the server environment that we had was capable for those 30 student installations. But when you go up to 300, 400, if we're like in a semi-massive mode right now, but if you go up to a much more massive open online course, then you have to really take into consideration the server environment, because WordPress, multi-site, and what the plugin we use, BuddyPress, to make it very social, is server intensive. It takes a lot of resources. So that's one of the things that I made sure that we would have in place before the MOOC even began, and that was a really solid server environment. And so I talked to the people at the City University of New York who did the Academic Commons, which is a WordPress and BuddyPress installation, and said, hey, what are you guys using for your server? Because, I mean, they have over 1,000 people, I'm pretty sure, probably more than that. It might be 1,000 blogs, but 10,000 people, something like that. So they have a massive installation. I would say, okay, if it works for you, then if we can take this back to our own system administrator at San Jose State University and copy it to some degree, then I think we'll be pretty successful. And so that's one of the things that we did. We made sure we had a great server environment, and our system administrator, Stanley, has just been excellent in giving us the technology that we need to create a great and stable environment for all of those students to interact without having to be distracted with the technology issues, because you don't want that to be a part of distance learning. You don't want that to be a part of online learning, because you want people to be able to focus in on the learning, on the engagement with one another and with the instructors and with the content. So it's important, if people are going to watch this and say, oh, I can do this now, that's one of the things that I would say is just make sure that you do some server testing, because you don't want it to just up and quit on you in the middle of the semester. Yeah, so BuddyPress is a plugin for WordPress, and what it does is it adds social networking capabilities into your WordPress site. So if you go to the MOOC and you look at the things like the activity stream and the groups, what we call tribes, and the blogs directory, and the private messaging, and the profiles, and all that good stuff, that's what BuddyPress adds into it. It adds in that social layer that WordPress really doesn't have, besides the comment features of individual blogs. So we wanted, again, this is us breaking out of discussion forums, right? Because we want to give people a number of opportunities to interact with one another. We don't want to force people into a box that says you have to do a 200-word post or a 200-word response to this discussion forum statement that we've made. We've said, okay, we want you to interact with your peers. We want you to write activity updates telling us what you're interested in, what you're doing. We want you to respond to other people's activity updates. We want you to easily see all of the blog posts that are coming in through the network of sites. And we want you to have easy access to those places as locations of discussion. And we want you to be able to contact people in public and contact people in private. And we basically want to give people free agency to learn in as many ways as they possibly can and as they possibly want to. Yeah, so in the MOOC specifically, we haven't told people use the activity stream. We haven't said write an update, but what we've done is we've forefronted it into the design of the course site. So when you hit the home page, what you see is the most important, what we think is the most important information right away, which is the latest blog post from Michael and myself. So they're getting the news that they need to get access to content, to hear kind of our thoughts on what's going on, and to just be updated in terms of their progression through the course. But as you scroll down the page, what you see is kind of a 50% layout. On the left 50%, you have the latest 10 posts or updates in the activity stream, and a form where you can update your activity stream right there. So it's, for us, it was important to forefront that and say, we value this. We think this is a great part of your learning experience. And by doing that, by not hiding that affordance of the system into another page, that's kind of, you know, 6 links down on the link tree, we think that that's probably been a really good motivation for people to use it. And you can access the activity, or you can update your activity in multiple ways. You can do it at the home page. You can do it on the activity page itself. You can do it on your profile, or what you called your wall. So when students log in, they're redirected to their profile. So they're seeing that form, that activity area multiple times. So I think it's important to think about how you design your course sites. And this is the problem I have with learning management systems, because they tend to force people into very specific templates and tell them what tools they have to use by how they've already forced the navigation on them. Whereas what we've said, we've made conscious decisions to say the information architecture of our course site is important not only for accessing information easily, but important for the experience of our students, the learning experience of our students. So I think that's why the activity has been used pretty heavily. I would say it took a few weeks, maybe, like a week or two, for people to see activity kind of go down that stream and say, oh, this is what's happening, this is what's going on, I can interact with this. Whereas maybe in the first week, which was kind of our, okay, get settled week, just get comfortable with everything that's going on here, I think it was maybe not used as heavily. But as you start to see content automatically go in the activity stream, people, I think, notice that there's some real value in paying attention to this area of the website. Yeah, no, we don't use any specific learning management system plugins. We haven't sought out anything in the WordPress repository of plugins that say anything like learning management system or learning management. There is one that I know of called Courseware that came up a couple of years ago, which I was really excited about, but it just doesn't seem to do the things that I want to do. And I think it's because it tries to make it a learning management system, and I don't want my WordPress installations for my course sites to be learning management systems. I don't want to manage learning. I don't want to manage it. I want to provide an environment for it, but I don't want to manage it. And so I think that's probably the biggest reason why we haven't sought those out. But that being said, we've created custom content types and taxonomies and custom fields in order for us to structure some of our content. So when you look at a module, that's a specific content type that I created, and it has some structured data to it. When you look at a tutorial, a video tutorial, that's again a custom content type with some taxonomies. I think that's all we've created. I thought maybe there were 3 different plugins, but yeah, I think that's all we've got. But those were custom built for our installation and not something that we sought out from other people. Now, that being said, if we wanted to do quizzes, we would need something that would be more learning management-esque. If we wanted to do forums, we could install forums, which there is an option with BuddyPress, but I decided not to do it because we didn't want to force people into forums. And we thought the activity areas of each different group, or like I said, we call them tribes, each different tribe was sufficient enough for that purpose. Well, I am actually going to do a screen share here, and I'll walk you through each individual one.
Awesome.
So, all right, so you can see my screen at this point?
Sure can.
Okay, so I'm going to go into the Hyperlinked Library dashboard, which is the main course site. And, oh, okay, so just to backtrack, so here are our 3 different custom, see if mouse pose is on. Yeah, there we go. Here are 3 different custom content types: modules, readings, and media, so when you go to access a particular reading for a course, and then our tutorials. But if we go to plugins, can see that there are a number that are going on here. And the first one is called Admin Menu Editor, and I love this plugin, mostly because I'm an organization freak and I like this sidebar to be customized to my needs. So the Admin Menu Editor just kind of customizes this area. So I was able to group all the 3 custom post types into one, which was nice for me. The Advanced Custom Fields is what allows me to put in special fields for modules. So if I were to add a new module, you can see if I scroll down, you can see these different fields. So here's one called Module Content, and it has the embed, the access, the slides link, the guest lecture embed, and then I can easily search through my readings and media. So if I was looking for Seth Godin, something he wrote, I can search for it and then quickly add it in, and that'll attach it to my module. So those custom fields are really a godsend. They're wonderful for structuring content, and it's been custom fields, and this plugin specifically has been a major upgrade for WordPress. If you compare it with something like Drupal, which has always had its, I think it's, what is it, CCK, Custom Content Kit or something like that, that's been able to do things like this custom fields for a long time, but WordPress has just really gotten up to date with this custom fields plugin. Broken link checker is what it says, and when we have, gosh, I think we have 300 plus readings and media. Let's see what we've got here. Yeah, 315 different readings and media, all with links in them. It's really helpful for us to just run broken link checker and say, okay, tell us what isn't working anymore, so we can fix that quickly. And so that also searches the posts, it searches the tutorials, it really searches any content on this blog, on the course blog, so that's wonderful. We have an iframe plugin going on because we have, I think, just a few iframe embeds that we've needed to access, and that's one of the things WordPress does is it says, whoa, because of security issues, we don't want you to allow iframes, so this allowed that. You can see the custom post type plugins here that I've created, and then of course our WordPress to Twitter plugin, which allows us to auto post our new posts and new module announcements to our Hyperlinked MOOC Twitter site. So that's just one blog, but if we were to go to the network admin, which is where all the administrative stuff happens for all the site, you can see that there are a number of other plugins going on. So our badges plugin, it's called badges because I've changed some of the titles of the plugin, but really if you were to search for it, you should search for achievements for WordPress. Yeah. And so this is what's running our badges program right now, which is pretty slick. You have the usual, I never know how to pronounce this, Akisame? Yeah, so that helps us with the spam, which is just a natural part of being a WordPress administrator. It's going to be the bane of your existence as a WordPress administrator. But if you put something in like Akisame and Better WordPress reCAPTCHA, you can control it. I've had no problems with spam this year, and this was one of my biggest concerns.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's been excellent. The BP redirect profile is what it says, so when people log in, it redirects them to their profile page, as I said. BuddyPress and BuddyPress activity privacy. So I want to just take a little bit of a moment to take an aside here. I'm going to hop out of my screen share. It was really important to me to make sure that we put in some levels of privacy for folks, to give them the opportunity to make it a safe space for their learning. So what this plugin does is it allows people to say, hey, I'm going to post my activity stream, but I'm going to limit it to who can see it. So it can be for everyone, it can be just for administrators, it can be just for friends, or it can be just for yourself. And I think that's really important when you have a course site that is open to the world. Everyone and anyone can access this course site. So we want people to be comfortable sharing content how they want to share content. And so this particular plugin also works nicely with the built-in privacy features of WordPress, which allows you to kind of hide your blog from the activity stream, and also from Google, which is nice if you don't want to share your post. And In a professional development blog, I think this is, or in a professional development learning space, I think this is especially important because people are reflecting on their employers. They're reflecting on their professional experiences, and some people have talked about, you know, what it means to be using the model and some of the readings and playing it off of their workplaces and the experiences, positive and negative, that they've had. So having these privacy options, I think, are extremely important.
Is that something that you do as well when you're teaching this at the university level, or is this something that you're more concerned about doing in this professional development context?
So, a little bit of a background. I actually study, as part of my doctoral program, I study student privacy issues in emerging instructional technology systems. So specifically, I'm looking at learning analytics technologies as they work in an institutional setting, especially how they track students in learning management systems. And so I'm well aware of, in the United States, the Family Educational Rights Privacy Act, which really guides how student privacy should be protected and followed, and encouraged with the threat of losing all of your federal funding if you don't do so. So it's an important law. So I address things a little bit differently in my own teaching. When I use the BuddyPress and WordPress installation, I am, and mostly it comes down to having a different conversation with my students, telling them, actually I can remember, I think it was probably the first day when we talked about creating accounts, and we walked through what it means to be a student in an openly networked world, and specifically what options were available to them and some of their rights that they had as students, and encouraging them to make an active and reflective decision about participating in an open course site, and laying out the details for what the privacy options are, which we have to a lesser degree in the MOOC, but because we're not under the constraints of FERPA, it's not as necessary. That doesn't mean it's not as important, but it's just not as necessary. So you have to have different conversations. That doesn't mean that you have to change the technology all that much, but you just have to have different conversations. And in an institutional setting, I think it's important. It's really important to be aware of the policies that your institution has for protecting student privacy, and also how those policies reflect, in our case, it's state and federal laws. So.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, I guess. I think it's a really important for information professionals to understand how to maintain an online presence and be happy with, you know, where their line in the sand is. And it's definitely a topic that I would love to talk to you about some more one day.
Sure.
But I'll let you get back to your plugins.
Oh yeah. So I think I had a couple of more. Yes. So BuddyPress custom profile filters, there's not a whole lot going on here, but it allows you to put, I think, special brackets around things you fill into your profile to make them linkable. So you could actually click on somebody's link in their profile in one of their fields and see who else has shared that in their profile. So if I say I like The Walking Dead in my profile, I can click on that maybe and see who else likes The Walking Dead. So that's how I use the custom profile filters. The group email subscription is what it says. It basically allows you to subscribe to updates, email updates in your tribes. And then BuddyPress Humanity has been really a nice key to what has really protected us from spam and from unnecessary registrations. It's a simple plugin. It just lets me put in a registration code into the registration form. So when we sent out the email to all the 400 students that we invited to join, we said, here's the registration code. Just put this into the registration form and it will let you get in. So it allows us to manage that very nicely. Multi-site plugin manager. We can turn off and turn on and auto-activate plugins for every single blog in the network of student blogs, which has been helpful because there's a lot of plugins here that you see, but only some of them we want to be accessible to students. Plugin memorandum, which I don't think I'm really using actively anymore. When I was doing testing, I needed to make notes to myself that said what was working and basically what wasn't. So it allows me to make a little note in here, which is nice. And then SoundCloud shortcode. Gosh, I really have no idea what SoundCloud is actually. Besides, I think it's just a music site. And a student contacted me, and she said, I'd really like to be able to embed SoundCloud into my post. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. So I went and found the plugin and installed it. And I think that's one of the best things about these course sites is that I can customize it based on the needs and wants of my students. I'm more than happy to do that. So when students say they need to embed something special, like a Prezi or something, I can make the customizations to allow it to do that. Or if they want some way to manage the content a little better, I can help them find that out. And so what I usually do is, take their recommendation, hopefully get enough information, and I'll do some searching, and I'll also encourage the students to do some searching at the WordPress plugin repository to look for things that they want to add in terms of functionality. And obviously you can't do this in the learning management system because of a number of reasons, probably because of how the infrastructure of the system is built, but also because of security concerns when that system is hosting thousands of sites or thousands of courses per semester. Just a couple of final ones. Unconfirmed lets me see what students have registered, but they actually haven't confirmed their sites, which has been a little bit of an issue. We get accounts that have been registered and then they hang up. For some reason, the students don't get the activation email, so this allows me to manage those. Welcome pack is key to the user, to the user experience. I guess I should say the user experience, because what it does is when students log in for the first time, they're sent an automatic message from myself that gives them really great information on what they should look at and what they should try to do and what's going on in the first week. So it's just a nice way to get that message, and it also educates them on how to use the private messaging feature of their profile, which is important. In addition, it auto-friends all of the students from myself and from Michael, so they know that they're connected right away with their instructors. Yeah. And just looks like two ones. WordPress importer, if people wanted to import their old blogs into their student blogs, they can. And then World Clock was another recommendation or suggestion from a student who wanted to share her time zone because we're an international body of students. Yeah, so I'd say I think there's about 5 different content types on the site. There are posts, there are pages, and in posts are dynamic content, pages are static content, modules, which are weekly pieces of content in our case, tutorials, which are special pieces of content for us to embed screencasts into, and then the last one would be readings and media. And the readings and media host all of the information about a particular reading. So if it's embeddable, we try to embed it. If it's accessible off-site, we link to it off-site. It's important for us to provide the APA citation, so we have a field for that, so people can track down all the information if they want. And then there's also a little bit of content at the very top that will provide a short annotation or a quote about it to contextualize the reading and media in some way. And we've used posts as blog posts, which for WordPress, sometimes they're not used as blog posts. They can be hacked to be used for any other different ways, but we've used them for what they've been designed to be used for, which is dynamic content, to update students about when modules have been released, to reflect back on the end of a module, to just give bits of information here and there. And as for the pages, if you look at the structure of the site, you can see that it's pretty highly structured. And we did, and I should step back a little bit and say that I can't take all of the credit for the design of the course site. I did a lot of it, but I also had a wonderful group of students this summer, most of whom were from the SJSU SLIS program, and a couple had volunteered from other programs to help out with the design and the development of the course site. And one of those teams, I had 4 teams. I had a web design and user experience team. I had a badges and gamification team. I had a learner, what I called a learner support services team, which helped me with some FAQs and the screencast tutorials. And then I had another team that was doing some MOOC research, kind of best practices, and also how librarians were engaging in the MOOC discussion. But the web design and UX team actually did user experience testing on some of the first iterations of the MOOC and tested out my information architecture that I put together and provided recommendations not only on how things should be structured, but how things should be designed as well, what friction points people had. And it's paid so much in terms of dividends. I've had really great compliments from the students about the design of the site. I have, gosh, I should knock on wood. I don't think I've had any questions about where things have been located. Like nobody said, where's the syllabus? Nobody said, what's the schedule? Nobody said, where's the due dates? Which are pretty common for course sites. And it's important information. You want people to be able to access that. So I think the team did a really good job in helping me to create a slick information architecture. So that was really important. So the pages represent the information architecture for the most part. Now there are some special pages that have been customized with some PHP and with some theming that I've done in the background. So the activity page and the BuddyPress directory and the peers directory is all BuddyPress stuff that I've worked into a page type content. Yeah, and what's important about that is that that dialogue is about their content. It's about their reflections. It's about their ideas. It's not something that's been forced out of them by you or other instructors to respond to a certain discussion prompt. It's been, hey, this is my space and here's what I'm thinking, and other people jump into that and they say, wow, that's what I thought about too, or what do you think about this? And it becomes a discussion from that individual's kind of hub of information, and that gives them ownership over the content, which is important. Everything is working pretty well at this point that I would probably pull stuff over to the next iteration. We had a lot of trouble with the badges.
I was just going to say.
Yeah. So the badges and gamification team, who are on the course site as homeroom leaders, as personal learning guides, Lauren Fox and Melissa Groves, man, they went through a lot in terms of getting the technology to work. And if you were to go to the achievements for WordPress website, you would see that, scroll back in the video, you would see that we're running, I think, version 2.4, but it's up to, I think, version 3.2 right now. So we tried to use version 3.2, but things weren't working. It wasn't doing what we thought it was supposed to do. It wasn't awarding badges. It wasn't awarding the type of badges that we wanted. And we tried another program called, I think it was called Badges OS, which was really cool. It had great options to create steps, basically. So, Kate, if you're a student, you have to do step 1, 2, and 3 before being awarded badge 16 or whatever you want to call it. So that was a really great way to really manage the badges in a way that engaged you to do a multi-step process. We can't do that with our badges program or our badges application that we have now. In that one, Badge OS just didn't work. It just, there were a lot of technical bugs, and this took weeks for us to do the testing of the technology, to do the testing of our conceptual kind of design of the badges system in terms of what people should be awarded, which is dependent on the technology. So we were building badges for those steps, but then those steps didn't work. So we built 3 iterations of the badges program before we said, okay, this is what we have and this is what works and we're okay with that. And so the badges program was a lot of work. It takes a lot of management too, because you know, we have, I think, what is it, 338 students, active students, or something like that, and we have manual badges that we have to award to each student, and we have checkpoint badges, so they have to earn those 5 checkpoint badges, which I think most of them are automatic, and then they get the master's badge. So behind the scenes, there's a lot of there's like a lot of Excel spreadsheet making and checking to make sure students are getting what they deserve, because, you know, we built the badges program. We want people to think that it's reliable, and we don't want people to go 2 weeks without getting the badge that they deserve. So the badges has been, I think, pretty successful if you were to look at it on the face of things and look at some students' responses to it, and just see how it's working technically. But in terms of managing it on the back end, it's a lot of work. It was a great challenge for me as an instructor to work with the gamification team to come up with the different I don't know, badges programs, because we had to examine each individual one and say, what are we addressing here? What learning are we addressing? How is this helping students achieve a certain outcome? And to look at that like so fine-grained in terms of the learning process is not something I think that I've really done to that degree in my other teaching experiences, face-to-face teaching. But you want these badges to be authentic. You want them to say something about the progress of the student. You don't want them to be fluff. And I think we've gotten some responses on the badges about, you know, being patronizing. One or two who said, well, is this patronizing? It's kind of awarding a badge for something that's really simple. And I think when you look at a couple of them, so writing a blog post or writing 5 blog posts or deleting a post, let's focus in on the deleting a post badge for a second. If you were to look at that on the face of things, you would say, this is so simple. Why am I getting a badge for this? But from my perspective as like an instructional designer, what I'm putting into that badge is I'm saying, I want you to learn the system. I want you to be a competent user of this brand new, for nearly everyone, brand new learning environment. And deleting a post or a page is part of experiencing the technical side of things. So we've done things to say we want to incentivize your use of the technology and learn the technology, and we've done things that say we want to incentivize your learning of the content and reflection on the materials and your personal growth in the course. So it takes a lot of work to actually think through all of those different aspects of learning and what you're trying to incentivize and what you want people to get out of it. Yeah. So that was a really long-winded answer to what I would not do next time. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying I won't do it next time, but I think I would have to reassess the sustainability of it. I would just reassess it for next time. I would see what we can simplify without taking away quality from the program. And, you know, as you know, with WordPress and with WordPress plugins and themes, everything gets updated pretty quickly. So maybe the next version of achievements for WordPress will be much more stable for us, or maybe Badge OS will be really great at that time. So you have to, it comes along with this type of environment. You have to constantly assess the technology, what's working, what isn't, what new features you could bring to it. So I think the technology will scale with the students. So if we go up to 1,000, 12,000, 15,000, I think the technology will scale wonderfully. We may have to do a little bit more to our server, but the technology will scale.
In terms of the learning design, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the instructional design, the learning design, as you term it, it will scale, but as you introduce more numbers into the environment, there could be more chances for people to feel disconnected from one another. I think with 300 or 400, maybe even 500, you're in this real sweet spot of, I know there's a lot of people here, but it's just enough for me to manage. It's just enough for me to carve out my niche of users or my niche of students that I really feel comfortable with or maybe, as Michael and I do, we follow every single individual blog in Feedly, and we try to read them all, and we try to respond to as much as we possibly can. I think students may be able to do that to an extent, but if you go up to 1,000 or 15,000, you can't do that. I mean, that's just too much to follow. So I think it'll be more work for students to feel more a part of the community as the course scales.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I don't think the technology. There's nothing the technology will do to make people feel more a part of the community as it goes up in numbers. Yeah. I think the tribes have been wonderful for the course design because it's allowed people freedom to say, this is what I'm interested in, this is what I'm proficient about, or here's what I have questions about. Let's get together and chat about it. So that has worked really well, and I think maybe that will continue to work in a larger environment. If you create a tribe or you join a tribe, then you're saying I'm going to be interested in this to X degree. Which is important. The homeroom leaders, gosh, I cannot say enough about the homeroom leaders and that part of the design. I think we ended up with 10 homerooms. We have 11 homeroom leaders, and I was gutted when I couldn't fill up that 11th homeroom because people were so excited. The homeroom leaders were so excited to see their students come in and engage them. And so it's been great to say, that we've carved out this space for 50 students, and these are the students you can engage in or engage with if you want to. If those are the only students you want to engage with, you have a group, and you also have someone that you feel confident that you can contact right away, the homeroom leader. Now I think we've made it very clear, and we've tried to do this in our writings to say, contact us too. Contact your instructors. Yes, this is a very large class, but we're more than happy to email back and forth with you. And we've had some really great discussions with some of the students, kind of in the back channels of our email and in private messages. So that's good that people still feel like they can contact us, but it's been great that people have a point of contact with the homeroom leaders. And this does get back to scale, because if we go up to let's do some math here. So let's just say 10. Let's say 10,000.
Okay.
10,000. Let's say 50 per. Yeah, 50. If we say there are 50 students per homeroom with a population of 10,000, that means we need 200 homeroom leaders. We can't get 200 homeroom leaders. So that's something that just won't scale. I think. And, maybe we can get 20 or 25, and it's been great experiences for the homeroom leaders. They've loved it. They felt ownership of the MOOC project, and they've been just a great part of it.
I think that is one of the elements, that kind of human touch that you often don't see in a MOOC. And I think it's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because if I was to apply this model, for example, to a big undergraduate subject or a big undergraduate course, it is something that would work, because essentially it's a translation of the normal tutor role into an online environment. I'm wondering that the level of hands-on and involvement with other teachers and even with other students that happens in this MOOC, have you had any feedback from students on that? Is it something they didn't expect, or?
It's a good question. I don't think I've ever had anybody email me or say, wow, I'm so surprised I can actually contact you. We're going to do it'd be fine if they did. We're going to do a post survey at the end. We did a pre-survey. We're going to do a post survey, so maybe some things will come out in the freeform comments there. I know just anecdotally that it seems that people are really grateful to have a homeroom leader. And I want to talk about the homeroom leaders for a second, because I think for somebody who, from an outside perspective, were to look at the homeroom leader model, they might say, well, that's just a TA. These people, these homeroom leaders are not TAs. They're more community organizers. They're not in charge of any kind of teaching. They haven't been told you're required to do any kind of teaching. In fact, we've said, look, stay away from the instructional side of things. Stay away from the teaching side of things. make people feel comfortable, help people with answers that they have in terms of using the system. Create icebreakers every week to get people to interact and ask questions of each other and answer some questions, maybe about the course content if you wish, but you're not required to really worry about that aspect of things. It's on my shoulders, that's on Michael's shoulders, and we're more than happy to do that. We want you to just be someone who can just help folks out when they need to get settled and get around and feel comfortable and focus in on their own learning and reflections. So we're not doing TAs, and I think that's really important.
It's a good point. I guess the perspective I was thinking about was staffing models, really. So if you want to translate this into a normal course, how would you go about staffing it? But it is, I guess, what I've found about teaching in this environment is that a big part of my job is facilitation and community management. And so to distribute that to other people, I think, very smart, and I think it's a model that people should look at implementing in other spaces.
Yeah, I mean, the question for me is, how do you incentivize that kind of that learner guide role, that homeroom leader role? How do you incentivize that in a typical, library school program? What are the learning guides getting out of that? Maybe it's a part of some kind of instruction practicum, but then again, at least in our model, we don't want them to do any kind of instruction. So, yeah, I'd be interested to see how that works out, as long as it differentiates from typical TAs.
It's kind of, I guess, it could be a student role. I mean, we did this project where I taught the unit here and a colleague taught it in Germany, and the German students were about 8 weeks behind my students. So my students took on a mentoring role for them to answer questions and, help them out with orientation to the site. So I think that's an interesting model. And my experience with library students and information students is they're so willing to share whatever they have, their knowledge, their time, their skills, and I can see it working well in this environment. It'll just be interesting to see if it applies with other disciplines too.
Yeah, definitely. At Madison, at University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I'm a doctoral student, we have a couple of undergraduate large lecture courses, and for the most part, the TAs in those courses are doctoral students from my program. And so I wonder, I bet they bring a whole nother level of value to that position because of their experiences, information professionals, either by way of professional experiences or by their master's degree and just knowledge of the area. So I've done much less than I thought I was going to have to do, I'll tell you that. When we went live, when we went live, I was waiting for emails to come flying in of things that were broken, of things that weren't working, of pixelation issues in different browsers and stuff like that. But I think because of all of the testing that we did in the summertime, we did it right. We did it right. We did all of the testing, from user registration or student registration to content creation to interacting with the social parts of the system, and everything seemed to work out really well. But during the summer, we had a spreadsheet going, a Google spreadsheet, where all of the students could enter in bugs that they discovered as they were working with it. And so I think we uncovered a lot of the issues then. Yeah, so really I haven't had a whole lot of technical bugs to work out, which has been a real absolute blessing. And I think it's a testament to, when you do these things, you take the time to do the testing. If you're going to be rolling out one of these kind of sites the week of classes or the week before classes, I feel like you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's why I think it's easier for people to use a learning management system, because all of that bug testing is already out of the system, and you can focus in on the content. But this is some of the responsibility we take on in order to create a learning environment that we think is a much better fit for our needs as instructors and for the experience we want our students to have. So we're willing to squash bugs all day long.
Yeah, and of course it's entirely appropriate for the content area that you be operating in this type of environment, and the learning management system might strip out some of those bugs, although I seem to regularly find them, but it just doesn't provide the experience that you need to teach what you're teaching.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, it's one of the experiences we've had in course sites before where we've said, we encounter a bug. We've encountered major bugs. We said, this is part of this environment. This is part of an information system that's just natural to it. Humans create it, therefore it's fallible, and there are going to be issues with it. It's how you deal with those issues and accept that you have to address them and get over them and move on and kind of involve with them. It's an important learning experience. I remember one semester where BuddyPress and Wordpress came up with major updates in the middle of a semester. And Michael and I were having a conversation about it. And we're like, well, what do we do? Do we actually update these things? It adds more features. It could add a different level of experience for the students, but then it could also break severely at the same time. And so I think we said, well, let's have the students decide. And so Michael had a conversation with the students and said, look, here are the risks. Here are the opportunities. We could probably backtrack if we need to, but it might take some work, and our course site might be down for a number of days. I mean, that's just a matter of how these things work. What do you think about that? And they were all like, update. Let's get these new features. Let's try this out. We'll be adventuresome about it. So, I think the folks that we've worked with, the students we've worked with, have understood that when you build these kind of systems and when you act with these kind of complex information environments, you're going to run into issues occasionally, and you're going to run into opportunities where you can blow stuff up or you can make it even better. So they need to be okay with risk-taking. I'm going to talk about people with non-technical backgrounds for a second, because I think people with non-technical backgrounds can do what you've done in your course sites, can do what I've done in my course sites, can do what I've done in the MOOC. They can do all of this, but in order to do it, you have to be willing to take some risks, make some mistakes, be frustrated at times, understand that you're getting into something probably over your head, but there are resources to make it to make you very knowledgeable about it. And there is a community of not only WordPress users, but LIS professionals who can help you work through it as well. I co-authored 2 WordPress for library guides on using WordPress, of course, using WordPress. And so there are resources specifically for librarians, and there's also, I think there's a book from Packet Publishing about WordPress for education. So the resources are out there, the community is out there, and you can do it even if you don't have a technical background. You just have to be willing to work outside your comfort zone for a little bit. Now, in terms of folks with a technical background, if you understand what a web server is, if you understand what a database is, if you understand what kind of like PHP is, not how it works, but what it is. You don't have to be able to write it, but what it is, that's really helpful. But I could create a BuddyPress-powered WordPress site in probably under 3 minutes here if you really wanted to time me. I think you can really do it quite quickly. You can get off the ground very fast, and you can get yourself going with one of these sites relatively quickly. However, to do it right, which I think we've done at the MOOC, to do it right, you have to have an understanding of information architecture. You have to say, I understand the importance of putting content in this place. I understand the importance of knowing what a content tree looks like, of making side steps, of putting in contextual help in areas. because I think it's really easy for people to build WordPress websites and maybe BuddyPress powered websites and then say, okay, I'm done, the environment's here, but yeah, the environment's there and the users can get in, but how easily can they get around the content? How easy are you making it for them to engage with the community, of helping them help themselves? Because that's really important. And information architecture isn't black magic. I mean, Peter Morville is going to be on the MOOC in a couple of weeks talking about information architecture for LIS professionals, and especially his topic is architects of learning, I think, which I'm really excited about. So you can pick up Peter Morville's Polar Bear book, as it's affectionately called, and read through that. It's really accessible. And just get an idea of some of the things you need to be doing with your content instead of just throwing pages up there or posts up there and saying, I'm done, the content's up there. It's about creating a really good experience in our case, for our students. For other cases, it's for the users of the community. So, again, another long-winded answer, but you can create these sites with minimal skill, but to be really highly successful with them, it's going to take some time and it's going to take some work.
I think my observation as well would be that a lot of that work is actually about learning design, and I think people get into these builds and they, haven't structured things in a really logical way, or they're not presenting the resources in the most obvious way for students. And I think a lot of that people kind of are afraid of is, and they think it's technical stuff, it's actually just what you do. It's just learning design.
Yeah. There's a bit of information architecture on their site. There's a bit of instructional design or learning design, as you call it. And it all plays together really interestingly. In fact, I would highly encourage people who are interested in information architecture to get their doctorate and look at information architecture in online learning spaces, because I think it's absolutely fascinating. I think it's absolutely fascinating, especially with the way kind of society is moving to actually accept online learning more wholeheartedly, to accept, or at least to look at MOOCs. What does it mean to create a course site for 50,000 students? I mean, what are the elements that you can change to make it scale better, to make a better user experience? I mean, there's so many research questions I can come up with in this area because it's just so interesting, and to me it's really new. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it to making it a successful environment for folks.
So this was obviously, I guess, I was going to ask you how long it took to build the site, but really you've been working on it for years, haven't you?
I've been building iterations of BuddyPress-powered WordPress sites for many years now. That being said, the site that we have for the MOOC is completely brand new. I did much more theme customization this time around than I've ever done before. I've done much more customization to the BuddyPress plugin than I've ever done before. And I've made a much greater effort at aligning the information architecture and the instructional design than I have before. So I've expanded my skill set significantly, and I look at online learning a little bit differently now because of it. And so it's an accumulation of many years of experience and trial and error and trial and success. But I don't want to, I say that, but I don't want to discourage people from not trying it out, from not giving it a go, or at least trying to install it and say, oh, I understand how this works. It's not, Kyle didn't come up with secret sauce. It's all here. He just has, a little bit extra skills than I do, but I can do this too. I would encourage people. I would say, don't listen to this and say, Kyle's the master at this. I would say, listen to this and say, wow, I'm encouraged what Kyle has to say. He's built a decent model, and I'm going to go and better it. So I would encourage people to try and do that.
Because I think the key thing is that it worked 5 iterations ago. There was nothing wrong with it. It functioned. The students enjoyed it. It's just that you're kind of developing it onwards.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, we're always looking to try new things, to build in new affordances into the system to better the experience, either by honing some of the tools that are already there, and then in other times adding in new tools completely. So yeah, it's been iterative, but all web design projects should be. They're never, there's a reason it's version 1.0, version 1.1, version 1.2. There are always things that you can do to make it better. If you've built a static web environment, you've built an environment that's going to die the next day it goes live. I mean, unless you're willing to put energy into it and try to make it better, I think you're doing your users probably a little bit of a disservice. Yeah, actually, Michael and I were just having that discussion earlier today via FaceTime in terms of, what happens to this whole thing once it's done. And I'm limited to some degree in terms of how I can package it because the theme was a premium theme that I customized, so I can't give people the theme and I can't give people the customizations. And I can't give people WordPress because it's already available. I think the best thing that we can do, and I think this interview is actually a really good start, the best thing that we can do is document what we've done and say, here are the decisions we made. I mean, it's basic knowledge management. Here are the decisions we made. Here are the issues we face. Here are some problems that you might encounter. Here are some opportunities. And just documenting all of that. In fact, I was thinking about it earlier, and I think as we've talked about in the last two modules, the modules that I led as a lecturer, talking about building virtual community spaces, I think this is a really great model for it, and I think there's probably some area to write like a library technology report. In America, we have the Library Technology Report series from the American Library Association. Great. I wrote the WordPress for Libraries one, and I think it would be good to take a little bit of what I've lectured about and then kind of explain it more in detail and use the MOOC as a case study. So I think that would be a good avenue for it. Not saying I'm going to do it because I have a dissertation to write, but I think that would be a good way. But yeah, at the very least, I need to write about it. I've got a blog that I haven't put too much time into recently because I'm doing research, but I think I need to really package this up in that way and write about it. But yeah, because of the technology, it's not like I've created something open source and I can just release it. I've used open source technologies, and so I can tell you how I put the little pieces together and made the cogs work. I think that's the best I can do, but I'm open to suggestions if you have any.
Well, I think that's a really great thing to do. Documenting your decision making and telling people how you've tweaked plugins and why you've tweaked them. I think that's a great gift to all of us.
Yeah. Yep.
So thank you so much for your time this morning. Before I finish up, I just wanted to ask you if there's anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to add.
If there are two things on my docket for what I want to do next time I teach a course using a platform like this, maybe it's not a MOOC, maybe it's just a 30-student online course. There are two things I want to change, or I want to add. I want to look at image annotation plugins. So I want to be able to put an image up there of a library in a common space and tell people, ask them to annotate it based on what they think is a participatory spot or a place that needs work by just doing a visual scan of an image. I think that would be really cool. I've seen that at kind of the Gawker media of blogs that I read. And then the other thing is to do more with text, with textual readings and doing comments or inline comments directly next to the text. So there have been a couple of plugins that can do that. They need some heavy customization in terms of integrating it with your theme. But it could be as simple as embedding in a Google Doc that has transformed the text of a journal article for a teaching and learning purpose. So I don't think I'm breaking copyright here at all. Into a Google Doc, taking a journal article into a Google Doc, and then having people comment on that and having a discussion within the text, which is something that I haven't done with my WordPress sites. yet. And of course, we could password protect that page, or we could password protect who can actually edit it. At the universities that I've worked at, we're Google schools, so everybody has a Google Docs account. So those are the two things that are on my horizon that I would like to see done, and if you see examples of that, I would love to hear about them.
Cool, well, I'll keep an eye out. So thanks so much for your time this morning, Kyle. I will head off and edit this video, and I'll send you a link. And good luck for the rest of the MOOC experience.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for putting this together.